Two problems I would say that I've been thinking about lately with women and dating, and just women in general, I guess, which of course applies to greater society, greater relationships, greater dating, etc. Right? Two things. There's one is this arrogance, the arrogance that most women have, and most women have this. When I was younger, I made the mistake of um, blanketing all women. There's always exceptions, right? There's always exceptions, but I think most women have this, and I've thought a lot about it, and I think that it's it's something within their nature that they have to have, because if they don't have it, they could get taken advantage of. Which obviously, I'm rolling my eyes because taken advantage of in today's climate when everybody is immoral, right? When nobody has a low body count, when nobody's moral, is a kind of a silly concept, right? Like, women think this. They think, oh, men are going to take advantage of me, and then they go sleep with 50 guys. It's like, you took advantage of yourself. Like, what are you talking about? When women say things like, oh, you know, take it, I don't, men are always out for only sex and they're trying to take advantage of me. It's like, you've had a bunch of sex. What are you talking about? like you're this chaste, pure virgin who has this treasure chest of chastity and purity that you want to give to the worthy man of your dreams. Like, no, no, lady, you've been out sleeping around, so cut the bullshit. You're a hypocrite, right? But there's this arrogance of, like, you know there's I would even use the word inherent. There's an inherent arrogance in women. um I would say modern women, and when I say modern women, I mean like after the 1980s, because I feel like that's kind of when, you know the effects of second wave feminism in the 60s really started to take hold. I don't know, man. It's all debatable. You have to go back to the Industrial Revolution. Before that, people were just in survival mode, so they didn't have time to have the luxury of being immoral. I mean, they certainly were, but I mean, like, it's not quite the same thing as today, where, like, you can be highly immoral and be very successful at it, and be very successful in life, and be very, have all your dreams come true. Basically, that's what kind of climate we're living in today, post-industrial revolution, which made life so much better and easier for everyone. Before that, everybody was in survival mode, so women had to choose good men out of necessity, out of survival. Now it's a completely different ballgame, right? So you got to wonder, like, at what point did that arrogance come in? Was it always there? I don't think it was always there, because I don't think women had time or the luxury of, you know, peaceful environment to be arrogant. I don't think they did. I think they were surviving. They had too much to worry about. They had to worry about if they were going to catch a disease next week. They had to worry about if their baby was going to die from a fever tomorrow. All these preventable things that the 20th century brought about. 19th century was a lot of advancements as well, but I mean, it's exponential, the advancements that we've had in the last 200 years. It's crazy. It's crazy. People need to think about that. Someone needs to really document that, because that's insane. But anyway, I'm sure people have. But yeah, arrogance, man, and I understand it. I get it. Everybody wants to sleep with you. Guys are horn dogs. So are you, though. Women are horn dogs too. It's just, they're just more manipulative with it. It plays more into their hypergamy. It plays more into their selfishness, right? But the arrogance that they think they're better than men. This is what I hate, and it's really it's folly. I like that word folly. It's folly because you're just a hypocrite. You're doing the same thing. It's just you're doing it in a different way. You're just more choosy. You're trying to hook up, and I guarantee you are doing it. And you're doing it a lot more than most men, at least most average men, because the guys who are getting laid, the guys who are hooking up, are the guys who are 10 out of 10. 8s and up. Top 80% of men. The rest of the guys, sorry, didn't make the cut. You know, you might get some scraps here or there, but we are living in a time when men are having harems. I believe that. We are living in a time when men have rotations, but it's the top tier men. And women are just happy to fall into that because hypergamy takes precedent over everything else. Takes precedent over her ideals, takes precedent over her religion, her ethics, her morals. Hypergamy trumps everything. And when you have an environment where women are thrust into this position of being extremely privileged and having extreme choices, having extreme abundance of choices, then what do? You get an arrogance. They're going to be arrogant because they're going to think that they're celebrities, and combine that with the fact that most women are not able to have a higher abstract type of thought where they can really think things through and understand nuance and understand, you know, look at things objectively and compare and contrast and take a step back and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm really privileged. I'm really lucky. I'm not oppressed. Men have given me freedom and have built this peaceful world. You know, of course, not every place is peaceful, but, you know, for the most part, yeah, at least in, you know, the developed countries, you know, the large countries, the large cities, etc. I mean, there's never been a better time to be a woman, ever. There's never been a better time to be alive because of the advancements, thanks to the Industrial Revolution, thanks to the advancements, etc. Right? So, you know, it's the amount of power that women have behind that, as you know, as far as dating, etc., is insane. You know, it's really insane. I mean, you got average women, 4 out of 10s, 5 out of 10s, who have their inboxes flooded on social media, flooded on dating apps, right? Sorry, you have an abundance of options. Arrogance comes with that, right? It just does. If you're look at celebrities. What is it about being a celebrity? It's you have abundance. That's the key underlying theme of being a celebrity. You have abundance of resources, of options, of choices. When you don't have success, monetary success, financial success, advanced personal success in your personal life, as a man, you're SOL. You're shit out of luck. You're just existing. No one wants to hang out with you. No one wants to. And I would blame a lot of that on our society, which puts money at the top of the pedestal, right? Which puts materialism and vanity, doesn't put love and quality relationships and more, morality or traditional ethical values, moral values. It ignores those things. And this is why someone like Donald Trump is our president, because that's a reflection of who we really are. That is to say, if voting is really real, I mean, you got options. You got about 2 options. I mean, imagine how insane that is. 2 guys, right? that we don't know very well, thrust into the most powerful position for the next 4 years. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but yeah, when you have that privilege, you're gonna be arrogant to some extent, and in a way, it's a kind of, I wouldn't say it's a curse. I would say it's a burden, in a way, because I want those problems, right? I'll take those problems over being, in scarcity mode, which most men are. Most men are in scarcity mode. Most men are just, they have no abundance. Why? Because of course the top 80-90% of guys are the ones who are succeeding. And that's that. I mean, you could say that's life, but the reality is that it's almost like we're in this little experiment, right? It's almost like we're in this little bubble where, or almost like a science lab test where, like, okay, we're gonna, you know, remove those traditional values, those traditional institutions that safeguarded families, relationships, love, society, and in turn society through those things, because that's what makes a good society, is quality monogamous relationships. And what did that look like? It looked like marriage, right? Because that's a commitment, it's a vow. People think, people seem to forget about that it's a vow. That's the point, it's a vow. Now, yeah, you could argue that the state coming in and the divorce machine is horrible, and I would totally agree 100%. But what marriage did do was it ensured commitment, it ensured family values, it ensured family first. And when you take away family first, society falls. So we're in this little experiment where, like, we're seeing that happen. Are we going to fix it? Are we going to stop it? And there's been some pushback. There's been some, there's been a lot of revelations and epiphanies about, who we are and what we're doing. And a lot of people are against this modern immorality, modern immoral lifestyles. And a lot of people are holdovers on those traditional things. But it's not about how people think or feel. It's about what people actually do. And right now, I still feel like we're living in a very selfish time. We're living in a very gynocentric time where women are uplifted, whether it's for hookup culture, for general dating, or for marriage. And the thing is that the arrogance is misplaced. The arrogance is misplaced in the sense that it's undeserved, first of all. You were just born a certain gender. You were born probably good looking, which is why you're as arrogant as you are, and you just have this little lucky timeline where you have a lot of advantages and privileges that men do not. The top 80% of men do not, right? And when I say the arrogance, a lot of what I mean is, a lot of what I mean is the inability to realize that you're privileged, and then to look down on men and to act like men are the problem, and to act like, oh, they're such, they're so annoying because they're always trying to hit on me or this or that. It's like you have no humility, you have no gratefulness, because your life easily could have been very different. You easily could have been born in some crappy country somewhere. You could have been born ugly. You could have been born disabled or disfigured, and it's just like, it's like a perfect list of ingredients for narcissism. You have this very easy, highly advanced culture, for women. No, I'm not saying life is easy per se. I'm saying the culture that we live in comparatively to past cultures and other cultures around the world. The Western culture, and I would throw Europe in there. is very, very privileged for certain demographics of people, for women, for good looking people, for rich people, for very successful people. I mean, you can live a life that is pretty much heaven on earth. You can. Every day you can live a life, and some people do. I'm not saying lots of people do, but I mean, let me put it this way. You take a guy, and we'll just stick with men and women in dating. You take a guy who most of his life got no compliments from women, couldn't get any dates, and this is a lot of men. And it's not like, oh, what's wrong with you? It's like, what's wrong with society and what's wrong with the culture where it's not normal for a man to find a mate at a young age and just have a family. Think about that for a minute. Like, so what that tells you is that the culture is not thinking about that. The culture is thinking about, let me hook up, or let me chase the attractive people, or let me, be a narcissist and try to be famous, or let me get rich by selling my nudes. Like, this is what people are thinking about. This is what young women are thinking about. They're not thinking about, oh, I want to get married and starting a family. Oh, and a lot of that, and I would say maybe the majority of that reason, is because of feminism. Is because feminism told women that, and lied to them in a consistent way for decades, that being a housewife was oppression, that being a stay-at-home mom was a jail sentence or some kind of slavery, and it's just pure nonsense, And I don't even, I mean, if you know, go work some crappy job, go act like a man, and you're unhappy. Or you just become, or you just, adapt to that. And then you're, for all intents and purposes, you're just like a man, and you're not even a good man. You're just out, hooking up, sleeping around in your 20s, because this is what feminism told you to do. Oh, I'm not going to go be oppressed, and get married and have a family. No, that's too patriarchal. I'm going to go work in a cubicle and slave away for some boss who doesn't care about me, and so I can barely pay the rent because the economy's messed up, and I mean, it's nonsense. And so it's like, where's our values? Our values are in this messed up culture, in these messed up habits that we have, so yeah, so there's that. There's the arrogance, and it's specifically it's the arrogance of not realizing how lucky you are, not realizing how much privilege you have, and not realizing like how easy you have it. Because life is hard for anybody, but it can be a lot harder. I'm just saying, it's a spectrum. Like, I would never say life is easy unless you're just really rich. Then I'd say life is probably pretty easy, in a sense. But there's always new sets of problems. Once you're rich and successful, etc., you got problems. And it's not that money is an answer. It's that money solves time. Money solves the whole issue, etc. Money can solve that, and money can solve your boredom problem. Fun can equate to happiness. Go ride around on a jet ski for 5 hours and tell me you're unhappy. Probably not, right? So I'm just saying, like, and it's not to address the fact that people have purpose. They have needs to have a purpose. They have needs to have a spiritual connection with God or the universe or something like that. And not to mention the fact that we should be living above our base instincts. right? Because if you're just out carousing and, you know, sowing to the wind, sowing to your flesh, you're going to reap, you're going to reap some unhappiness, and many people do, you know, and you see it. You might not hear about it a lot, but you can see it on people's faces, you know. Was it worth it? Was it worth it to, you know, throw away love, throw away God, throw away a family for your little selfishness so you could have your fun and enjoy your lust and enjoy your materialism, da 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 da. So when I say the arrogance, it's all of that. It's the hypocrisy. It's the, you know, the inability to really realize, like, hey, I shouldn't take advantage and manipulate this kind of power I have. Because women do have a kind of power. They have a power insofar, they have a power in the dating market. I do think, in a sense, women are more powerful in the dating market, which in a way actually gives them more burden. It gives them more burden to be better. Because most men just can't do what women can do. Most men are just slaves to their circumstances. They're slaves to their environments. They're slaves to their limitations, right? If you don't got money, you can't go do things with money. If you don't got good looks, you're not going to get a lot of attraction from the opposite sex. If you don't have power and privilege and status and all these things, you don't get the perks. You just live this normal, boring, benign life. And when you're looking around and other people are enjoying this excess, that becomes a kind of suffering, you know. But, you know, within that, it should reroute us to what really matters, which is love and God and wholesomeness and things like that. I guess that's boring. I don't know, because the world is so influential to our subconscious mind. It really is. It's so influential, so subtle, so insidious, in the sense that, you know, it's very subtle. You know, the concept of, like, materialism and riches is hidden in everything. Advertising, media, culture, pop culture, music. It's hidden in everything. There's this subconscious under, you know, underlining, underpinning of, I don't know, I guess I would use the word sin, but really it's you know, the world is like a magnet. The world, and a lot of it is just, you don't need it, right? When it comes to basics, we need food, shelter, exercise, health, decent relationships, you know, intimacy, physical, touch, sexuality. You know, we need sex. We need, there's basic needs that people have. The problem with the world is it's about excess. It's about, you know, it's about, you know, taking those basic needs and turning them into a economy, if you will, right? What do people need? They need housing. So how do you turn that into an economy? You turn that into an economy by making these beautiful houses that are insanely expensive that most people will never be able to live in. So you drive most people to lust after it and be greedy, and it affects people's lives and it hurts their heart because, you know, I want to live in a mansion, or I want to live on a lake, or I want to live in this cool house on a hill, or, you know, but I'll never get to do that because I don't have the money. So what are you going to do? It's going to make you miserable. It's going to make you jealous. It's going to make you unhappy because you want that thing that you probably will never get. Or it'll make you ambitious, so you become a slave to money. You become a slave to your desires. You see, that's just one example. It's everything. It's clothing. It's because we need clothing, but what do you got out there? You got all these clothing companies who are, oh, this cool shoe and this expensive suit and this look at how well dressed this guy is, and that's why he gets the girls, and you should be like that so you could get the girls. So you got to go shopping and spend thousands of dollars. It's a system. The world is a systematization. I don't know if I said that word right. Systematization of basic necessities. It takes our basic necessities and it transmorphs them into a system of lust, right? A system of, there's a good word. What is it? Paul the Apostle was. Oh, it's the sin that Paul the Apostle was suffering with. When you desire to have things that other people have, I forget what it is. There's a term for it. There's a word for it. But you're envious of what other people have, and you're trying to constantly, raise the bar and lift your life up, and then that plays into situations and scenarios, where it becomes a competition, and that plays into the dating market, and that plays into the dating game, where women are like, oh, well, this guy drives a Toyota, but this guy drives a Mercedes-Benz, right? So it's like, that's part of the systematization as well of the world. There's basic necessities. Sure, you need a basic car, right? Sure, you need clothes. Basic clothes doesn't mean you got to dress bummy, doesn't mean you got to dress amazing. You just need good clothes. That's it. You need a relationship, maybe a couple friends, you need a family. That's it. It's simple. All the things that are good for us and are best for us are simple. But what the world does is it takes those things and it makes them complicated. It makes them something that you got to have ambition to achieve, something that you got to go work hard. And really what they're not telling you is that you become a slave, right? You become a slave. Pinocchio, one of the best examples of people becoming slaves to their desires when, on Pleasure Island or whatever. And that's just a metaphor, it's just a general metaphor for addiction and, type of lifestyle and behavior where you're getting sucked into something that's not good for you. Getting sucked into a pattern of living that's systemically insidious. So everything's systematized, and it benefits women, and it's supposed to benefit women. I believe that, because if women weren't bought into it, if women weren't consecrated to it, if they didn't invest in it, and women were just like, yeah, I just want a family, I just want it, but they're selfish. And so, and I'm not saying men aren't selfish, but when it comes to them, I believe women are solipsistic. I don't think men are solipsistic. I think men, yes, everybody's got an ego, everybody's got that ego, right? Everybody's got that, selfishness to some extent. One of the things in my life that, for better or for worse, I decided to do at a young age was try not to be selfish, was to try to put myself in other people's shoes and to try to have understanding. And again, I'm far from perfect, but all I'm saying is, like, at least, once you do that, you gain perspective and you gain humbleness to some extent. And suffering causes humbleness as well. Suffering causes perspective, and it keeps you in check and things like that. But there's a lot of people out there who just don't give a crap about any of that. They don't care about other people's sufferings. They don't care about, and I think this is a generation that's like that. To some extent, it can be good to be selfish, in a way. To some extent, sometimes in life you gotta be selfish in a way. But that's not really what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a culture that is, again, or, going away from those values and those basic necessities. If you take care of the basic necessities and you have a good selection of basic necessities, like you lucked up and got a good wife, you got a nice loving family, you got a job that you can do that doesn't stress you out too much, that pays well and affords you decent quality healthy food, and you have enough money to enjoy life a little bit, you're sitting pretty. There's an attack on those basic things, I think, or there's a marginalization, or maybe even a replacement of those things. And so that's why we see a lot of people who are like just perpetually single. We see a lot of, in our generation, we're seeing that. We're seeing people aren't having kids in alarming numbers. People aren't getting married in alarming numbers. People aren't owning homes anymore. People aren't having great careers anymore. All the basics are becoming corroded. There's a lot to it. Why? There's a lot of reasons why. But anyway, so there's that arrogance, because you just don't understand any of that, right? Which really just shows you that women don't understand men. They don't understand reality of life. And they think simplistically. They think they think how children think. Children are solipsistic for the most part. You can teach a child to be unselfish to some good extent. And you should. That's another problem why people are like the way they are. Because people aren't being taught to be good people anymore. They aren't being brought up to be good people. They're being brought up to be selfish by selfish parents. So there's that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, I'll try to be quick here because I know this is already really long. The other thing is that, what was I going to say? What was the other thing? The other thing is, so there's the arrogance, and then there's the, what's I going to say? It's the, let's see, the arrogance, the hypocrisy, and then the, boy, sometimes my mind just goes blank, and I'm just like, what? It's, I have it, but I don't know how to articulate it. It's when, oh, that's right. Okay. So it's like, I see this a lot, and it's been bothering me, where women will go, they'll talk bad about their exes. Now, this is there's consistent loser behavior happening with women. I think that women are losing. I think modern women are losers. I don't care how successful you are monetarily. I don't care how successful you are with like, oh yeah, I can get anybody I want. I can go date anybody I want. You're still a loser. Here's who the real winners. The real winners are people who found their other half, who found their spouse, who are happy. They're out of the way. They're not in anybody's business. They're not trying to be. They're not, they're just out of the way. And you see it every once in a while. You see it. They're just living their life, and they love each other, and they maybe have a nice little family, a couple kids maybe, and they're just enjoying the time that they got here on Earth. Those are the winners. The people who are losers are the ones who are like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm good looking, or I'm successful, and I'm famous, I have the status, and it's like, who cares? Like, dude, you realize, I mean, maybe that's cool when you're 20, maybe that's cool when you're 30 for a little while. It's like cool, it's cool to have success and achieve things. But if that's your whole life, it's like, I think that's losing. Yeah, I don't care how outwardly successful you are. I think it's losing to just constantly on that grind, constantly trying to have higher status, trying to push forward your brand, trying to make more money. And yes, there's rewards in that, in the sense that, yeah, you can make a lot of money. Yeah, you can have a lot of pleasures and lust, fulfilled. But eventually you're going to be empty. I believe that. I believe a lot of these people end up empty and they don't talk about it. They don't admit it. They just deal with it. And it would be better if they did talk about it. And some do. But if people told you, how empty that constant, how empty certain lifestyles are, right? So now I think I'm way off on a tangent, but what was I gonna say? Okay. Yes. So a woman who's dating around a lot will have these scenarios where, like, she'll have an ex and she'll be like, oh, he's a loser or whatever. And I've seen this a lot. I hear this a lot. The reason why I hear this a lot is because it's common, and I think it's what people are doing a lot. They're just having situationships. They're having these flings. They're having these relationships where they're really just kind of like friends with benefits, honestly. And there may be some emotion, there's maybe some passion there, but it's mostly just sex. I think that's what's very common in our society today. And I think a lot of the reason is because of culture, and it's because of that's just the culture that we have. So when you have those situationships as a woman, you're going to have a lot of exes. And men have exes too, but it's not quite the same thing. Because, and this is really exposing to female nature as well, because I've met a lot of those women who come out of relationships or had a lot of exes who talk bad about their exes. And I've seen this for decades, particularly with social media, because it's so easy to just go rant on social media. It's so easy to just go make a post on social media. And so you read it and you're like, what is she really saying? What is a woman really saying when she says, oh, men ain't shit, or my ex was a loser, or my baby daddy's a loser, or what are they really saying? They're really saying, I can't have a quality, loving relationship because I'm problematic. Probably because I'm driven by lust. Women are driven by lust, and they don't talk about it. Women are driven by lust, just like men are. But men get thrown under the bus for it, whereas women, it's very subtle, and they pretend like they don't have it, but they do. They're driven by lust. They're having a lot of sex, right? Having sex on the first date, having hookups. Hookup culture is still very prevalent. There isn't a counter. There hasn't been a counter to that, as far as I know. I'm not saying people aren't getting married. I'm not saying people aren't settling down. I think what's happening. I think the dynamic that we're going to enter into is a dynamic where people are settling in mass. There's going to be a lot of people who settle. There's going to be a lot of men who are forced to settle with women who have a high body count, highly damaged women, emotionally highly damaged women, mentally highly damaged women, physically even, because when you have a lot of sex or you don't take care of your body, you damage your body to whatever extent, and in whatever way, whether you're overweight or you got, you just gotta, you haven't taken care of yourself, you don't look good. So I'm seeing a lot of fallout from that. I'm seeing a lot of women who are like, oh, all of a sudden they came to this epiphany that their ex was a loser and they didn't want their ex anymore. And really the truth is that I think in a lot of these relationships it's about, it started with hookups. It was about lust. And once that happened, you started getting attached to that person. And that conflicts with their hypergamy. Because they're like, well, I really enjoy the sex. I've created this bond, this serotonin bond, or dopamine bond with this person. My brain thinks I'm pair bonding, but really this was a hookup, or really like I think I could do better. My hypergamy's kicked in. I didn't wait for the best guy I could get. You know, I've been sleeping around. And what does that produce? It produces bitter women. It produces women who have got their ex imprinted on them emotionally or whatever. It produces women who are really damaged. And so what do? They express that damage through hating men or talking bad about their ex. And so you look at it and you're like, look, man, you got to take accountability at some point and be like, your ex is, whether he's a loser, quote unquote, or not, you chose that dude. And whether it was for sex or whatever, that's on you, man. You know, and women will do this, like, and I think a lot of it is just how they cope, and it's how they get over a relationship, is like they put the man down. And yeah, maybe on paper, objectively, a lot of, you know, maybe their exes were kind of losers. Maybe they were broke, or maybe they were this or that. There's some truth to that, but that's not the point. The point is that you chose the guy, first of all. The point is that whether he's broke or not, or successful, or the best man you could have got, it doesn't matter, because relationships should not be built on that. And when they are built on that, they end sooner than later. They don't last. I think, you know, divorce is at 50%. Women are initiating 85% of divorces, 80% of divorces. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's very high. I'd say 3 out of 4, at least 3 out of 4 divorces are initiated by women. So I tell you, women are not satisfied. How are women usually not satisfied? It's usually in their hypergamy. Maybe you could argue it's emotional, or you could argue it's they're not getting certain needs met, like their emotional needs, or maybe they feel like the man should do more, or do this or do that, or shouldn't play video, you know, whatever criticism. If you really love the dude, you'd make it work. But it's, the problem is you're entering into these issues. You're entering into these relationships without the intent to love. It was about sex, or the excitement, or he was a bad boy, or this or that, or you know, it was a hookup, whatever. So you chose the guy, and now you're gonna bash him that the relationship's over. You're gonna call him a loser, even though you were sleeping with him, which is just pure, hilariousness. You're sleeping with a guy, and then you turn around and call him a loser. It's like, what does that make you? You know. So anyway, yeah, there's this, and I would say that ties into the arrogance. You know, I would say that does tie into the arrogance. I would say that that's part and parcel of women being oblivious to how good they have it. Very rare for a woman to be self-aware to that extent. Very rare for a woman to be humble in our society, or even, you know, smart enough, you know, mentally to understand certain things like that. You have to have a certain upbringing. You have to have a certain character built. You have to have certain values that you uphold, or at least that you understand. You know, it's one thing to go out and slip up and know that you're doing wrong, and then eventually fix it, as opposed to just being totally ignorant. I think most women today are totally ignorant, and they have no clue. They don't know which way's up, which is bad for everybody. Bad for families, bad for our society, bad for men, because men got crap choices. And again, I think we're coming into this era where people are just going to have to settle for used goods, damaged people, and that ain't good for our kids, man. That ain't good for our future, you know. On the other hand, you know, you could look at it and just be like, man, all that talk is idealism. If we're talking about realism, that's just the way the world is. It is what it is, man. People aren't going to change. But I think you can wake people up. I think you can cause people to improve and advance in their thinking and see things more clearly and become more aware with education. It's always education. And that's where I feel like parents have failed young women. They failed this generation. The boomers have failed on so many levels. Gen X is failing on so many levels. The millennials have come along and tried to figure it all out, and Gen X and Gen Z or whatever are just, excuse me, Gen Z and the whatever the hell, Gen Y, whatever the heck else, these guys are just like, they're inheriting this mess. They're inheriting, sure, they've inherited this great technological boom. They've inherited maybe a great economy in some ways, as far as potential to become rich. Doesn't mean the economy is good for everybody. It's good for some people, but they've inherited some good things. But as far as relationships, values, things that are lasting, I don't see it. I can't see that our generation would last, another 100 years. I don't see it the way things are going, and they'll blow up the world before then. Anyways, we've already got war with Iran. We've got Ukraine. It's all going down anyways. But I'm just saying, from the way things look now, it ain't good, man. When you go away from traditional values, when you go away from love, when you go away from family, when you go away from God and morals and truth, you're in a world of hurt. And I don't care how successful you are. I don't care how fun it is. And I don't care how good looking you are and young and healthy, and eventually it's going to hit. Eventually. You might be winning, and you might win for the rest of your life, in the sense that you got some outward success. You might win in that way. Maybe you got a mansion, or you got good looks, or you got abundance of choices of relationship partners and sexual partners and all these things that most people don't have. Sure, you could have all that, but it's temporal. Family is legacy. Family is, and there's something within family that you can't get anywhere else. And it's free. It's free. You don't have to toil for it. The love that you get with a family, the love that you get with, a good traditional, moral, foundational, I would say, long-term relationship or marriage, you can't get that anywhere else. You have to, I don't know if I should use the word earn it, but you have to sacrifice to get it. Let's put it that way. You have to sacrifice to get it. And it's not built on money. It's not built on your man's ability to provide. It's not built on the foundation of, oh, we're so successful. Look at us. We're going to go take pictures of the pumpkin patch and post it on social media so everybody can see how much in love we are. All that kind of outward nonsense. It's not built on, the romance in novels or Hollywood. It's built on real crap. And in order to get that, you got to sacrifice. I'll just give a little example. When I was younger, in order to gain more God, in order to get out of the matrix, I had to give up stuff. I had to give up some of my ambitions, most of my ambitions. I had to give up greed, lust, desire, excess. You have to give those things up. You have to sacrifice those things in order to get love, in order to get closer to God, in order to get closer to the earth, in order to get closer to the basics. Back to basics, man. Always back to basics, right? And I would say a lot of this is Christian thinking. I really do. I believe a lot of that is Christian thinking, and I think Christian, quote unquote Christian philosophy, if you will, or Christian theology it's based on love. It's based on wholesomeness. It's based on things that are not anywhere related to greed and lust and worldly ambitions and things like that. It's, again, the basics: family, putting God first, enjoying simplicity, and enjoying simple things, enjoying nature, being healthy, doing the basics. These are all things that are within everyone's reach. I believe that. Yeah, getting a mansion, no, that's not within everybody's reach, right? Becoming rich and famous, not within everybody's reach. Being a hot, desirable, sexy person, not within everybody's reach. Having an abundance of sexual partners and dating and relationship options and privilege, that's not within everyone's reach, right? But everyone can have a family. Everyone can meet somebody who really loves them for who they are and supports and takes care of them, and vice versa. And it's mutual. Everyone can do that. It's just people are distracted with that other stuff. People are poisoned and damaged from that other stuff. So when I criticize women, I could criticize men about a lot of things, but when I criticize women about these things, it's because those things are blocking you. It's because those things are hurting our society as a whole. Because if we don't have good families and we don't have good children raised in quality environments, and yeah, there's some money that is within that. Yeah, you need money within that framework, right? Because that's just the world we live in. You need it in a sense, but love, if you have family and you have love, I don't know if kids, for the most part, would really know that they're poor, or know that they're, not as well off as other kids. I don't know that they would, because love is rich. Love is, and family, and it's wealth. Health is wealth, right? Taking care of your body, having, good mental health, having good emotional health, being well adjusted, enjoying your life, that's wealth. That's real wealth. But what happens is people get caught up. They get caught up in the grind. They get caught up in the ambition. They get caught up in the lust or the greed or this, that, and the third. There's always traps out here, right? And so when I criticize women, it's like, you have an opportunity, because you have so much power in the dating market, and you're such a and so are men, but it's not. I would like to instill these things into women, these values. It's like, hey, forget about how much money a man makes. Forget about your hypergamy. Forget about your ambitions to go have fun and date around, blah blah blah, right? Because those things are just going to end in your unhappiness. Really, I believe that. I'm not saying, there's a temporary enjoyment of sin, and some people are happy in sin their whole life. Some people are happy in their ill-gotten gain. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't know what their heart looks like, or I take care of myself for the most part, and I know what I know about me, but I think a lot of it is, I think a lot of what people boast about, a lot of what people are confident about, is not the right things. They're transitory things. But when you have a family, you're leaving something behind that is, it's a wonderful thing to have like a box full of pictures. I can't stress this enough. Like, it's a wonderful thing to have a box full of family pictures that goes back decades. And I think something like that is lost. Let's say you have 3 generations of family pictures, 100 years, 150 years, something like that, of, I don't know if that's the correct timeline, but you got your great grandparents, you got your grandparents, and then you got your parents, right? That's 3 generations of pictures, and you look back and you're like, wow, that's amazing. Now imagine you're a modern woman, let's say, and you don't have that, and you're 40, and you don't have any pictures with any kids that you never had, loving husband that you never got because you were too busy with your career or your hookups. 40 comes quick. It sneaks up on you quick, man. And I think for women, it's subtle because a lot of women just let me opt out, let me settle out here, and you don't hear about it, and they just disappear, and they just meet some guy, and they just be quiet about it. Because women are very quiet, very subtle in the way they move, so they can avoid accountability and they can avoid, you know, being exposed. But the truth is that, you know, and even that's a problem because okay, so you slept around in your 20 from the time you were 18 to 30, 12 years, maybe more, of hookups and whatever, and you think that's not going to carry over into your relationship? I think you got another thing. I think you got another thing coming, honestly. I think that it will carry over into your relationship, and I think that it will affect your relationship, and it will affect your character, it will affect your morals, it will affect who you are as a person to whatever extent. And I'm not saying people can't change, I'm not saying people can't grow, whatever, but I don't know, man. It's kind of like a thief or something. Like a guy stole his whole life and he was successful at it and he became rich as a thief, and all of his things he got, his ill-gotten gains, were from crime or from just uh, you know compiling things not normally. Not you didn't earn any of that stuff. It's kind of the same metaphor. There is like you go out and you sleep around, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm done sleeping around, let me find some guy to settle down with. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I went out and I made my millions stealing it in an immoral, illegal way, and now I'm going to settle down on my little nest egg of ill-gotten gains. And it's like, I don't think you're going to have good karma in that situation. I don't think you're going to have a good life. I think that there's going to be problems. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being superstitious, or maybe I'm being religious, or maybe it is like that. Maybe you look out and there's a lot of people who are really, maybe life is just about results. It doesn't matter how you got there. And I think that that's where a lot of people get discouraged, because they're like, man, I tried to do it the right way. I tried to be moral. I tried to be honest and truthful. I tried to, work hard and achieve things based on merit, and it didn't matter. I'm nowhere in life. And there's this guy who's a criminal, literal criminal, who's stealing and he's cheating people and manipulating and getting all his ill-gotten gains through bad ways, and he's got a mansion. He's living this great life. I mean, that's a conundrum. That's a moral conundrum. That's a biblical conundrum. And in order to answer that conundrum, you got to look to the Bible. And I don't know. I can't say for sure. I think to some extent people do get away with things. So, I don't know, man. Some people say judgment begins at the house, meaning God's going to judge everybody. It's just he judges his followers first, and the followers take the hits first, in the sense that he doesn't let them get away with anything in this life, maybe, or he does some things, or I don't know. I don't know exactly the ins and outs in that. I'm not God. I'm not an expert. I don't know how that works exactly. And maybe the judgment for these people who get away with everything is going to be a lot greater at the end. I don't know. It's just, it sucks and it's sad, the inequality. And women fought it for a long time. They fought that whole, oh, why do you care about who I sleep with? Why does that matter? It doesn't matter. It's just sex. It's just like, well, men can't do it, so it's not fair, right? Only the top 10% of guys, 10-20% of guys can do it, so it's not fair, first of all. Second of all, men, it's a trap of lust. It traps men. It harms people. Causes tons of damage. Right. Affects kids. Affects society. Right. And then at the end of the day, you know, you think you can just slide over into a good relationship? I don't know. Maybe. Doesn't seem like you deserve it, though. I'll just say that, I guess. It doesn't seem like you deserve it. I've seen it, and I guess it's just having your cake and eating it too. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know, man. I don't know what these people go through in their everyday lives. I guess you could look at it like this. Would you want to settle down with a woman who's got a high body count, who's messed up, I don't know. I think maybe to some extent men are losing that option because they're all like that. But anyways, guys, I've talked a lot. It's been about an hour on this podcast. I think I'm going to end it here. Some crazy things to think about that I see that I do think that I think to some extent, thanks to certain outlets, that are very good, I think there's a lot of truth that's going around out there. Yeah, there's a lot of lie and manipulation and sin and things like that, and evil and insidiousness, etc. going on. But there's also a lot of truth at the same time. There's also a lot of... It's weird how that contrasts. You can find the truth if you look and you want it in your heart. And sometimes the truth hits you and you're like, oh man, that is the truth. And I should be honest. But it's an interesting verse in the Bible. It says, people always quote John 3:16, but not a lot of people quote John 3:17, which says something like, the reason why people are condemned is because they love the light, or excuse me, they love the darkness more than the light. The reason why people are condemned is because, well, it's really because they reject God. But go read John 3:17. I think it says this. It says the reason why people become condemned is because, or the reason why people become lost or just go away from God and become condemned are because they love the darkness more than the light. People who have righteous indignation generally are people who like the light. They like truth. They like righteousness. They like being right as opposed to wrong. They like being moral as opposed to immoral. They like being legal as opposed to illegal, and they like the light. They like righteousness. And I think that I don't know for sure, but I think that, yeah, we're all made in God's image, and God is righteousness, and God is love and light and life, etc., right? And truth. But until people become born again, or they're still corrupted, they're still condemned to some extent, to whatever extent, and they love the darkness. You can see it. People love their sins. They love their selfishness. They love their lust. They love their greed. They love their money. They revel in it. They boast in it. They live in it like a pig lives in the mud. Like a pig loves the mud, and it's hard. It trips you up. It makes you... You're like, man, why can't I be like Leonardo DiCaprio? Or, man, why am I not rich like this guy, or that, or this famous person? Or why, gosh, I'm suffering. Why this, But then you look at it and you're like, well, actually, Leonardo DiCaprio's pushing. He's almost 60. I think he's 55. How old? No, he's not 55. I think he's almost... He's in his 50s, I think, maybe late 40s, early 50s. I don't know how old that guy is, but he's getting up there. Let's say that. And he's not married. He doesn't have kids. He hasn't settled down. And how much How many vain relationships has that guy had? How, it's not that I'm judging him. It's just like you see these outward things. You're like, oh man, there's so much success, and you're like, but is it really what you want? You trade the money for family. You trade the sex for the quality relationship. Okay, if you go have all the sex, you're probably never going to be able to pair bond for the rest of your life. You're probably going to have bad relationships for the rest of your life. You're probably going to feel like you never met the person you were supposed to be with. Now, I'm not saying there's people who don't have sex who still feel that way. That's true. But it just seems to me that, I don't know. I think everybody has that option when they're young. It's like, you know what? You could just go get married. You could just go start a family. You could have this thing that you want, that God put in you to want, because everybody has that. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants a marriage. Everybody wants that. That's why it's so romanticized, because everybody wants it. It's in us. In the same way that we want to eat food. It's a drive. We're attracted. It's just it's who we are. But there's also this other thing, this lust that comes in. It's like, oh, I want to go have sex, or I want to eat that junk food, or I want to do these things that aren't good for me because it's titillating, it tastes good, and there's this temporary, intense pleasure around it. It's not lasting. It has these problems, and it affects you, and affects your health, and it affects your mental and emotional well-being. And it's like there's trade-offs, there's consequences. Sure, Leonardo DiCaprio is super famous. But he's starting to age, starting to lose his looks. And the guy doesn't have any kids. And he doesn't have a good family. I'm just using this as an example. It's like, there's trade-offs. And maybe that's the life that he wanted to live. I don't know. But I think everybody, maybe I should only speak for myself, but I think human nature wants long-term companionship. I know people have made that argument before and tried to say, oh, humans aren't supposed to be monogamous. It's not in our nature. Men want to go spread their seed. Women are looking for the most alpha guy, the best option, hypergamy. I think to some extent that's true. Like to some extent, we do have this, this biological drive or these natures and these. But I think it's nuanced. I think it's more deeper than people realize because. You have a twisting of that in the same way that like earlier I mentioned how you have these basic needs and they get turned into systematic. It gets turned into a system, like marriage becomes systematic, housing becomes systematic, clothing becomes systematic, food. It's like, and it can become excessive or not normal. It becomes distorted. In the same way, love can become that way. In the same way, you distort who you are. You distort who you are when you're not doing those basic things. It's like, okay, maybe you are always able to have a relationship, but do you have one real good relationship, one real love? I don't know. At the end of the day, it's a messed up world, man. It's a messed up world, and we're all just living in it. If you can find somebody to be happy with, cool, But I think men have been done a great disservice by feminism, by porn culture, by hookup culture, and I don't think women care, and it's sad. And I think that women are very arrogant. They really don't love men that much. They really don't. They're really solipsistic and selfish, and they want what they want, and that's all they care about. Because if you really had love for your future partner, you probably wouldn't go sleep around. And don't give me that crap about, oh, well, that's how, that's society, that's the way things are. No, that's what you have done. You've built that by participating in it, by your actions. Women have done that by their actions. It's not society. It's you. It's feminism that put that battery in your back, that bee in your bonnet to go sleep around, to go be immoral, to go jump from guy to guy, to be selfish, to be narcissistic. You were trained to behave like that. Someone could have trained you to be wholesome and to get married and to have a good life, or to have a good long-term relationship life. But instead, you got wrecked by feminism, which is satanic. It tells you can go sleep around, tells you can go your body, your choice, right? With no consequences. Well, sorry. There are consequences. So, I think we can do better. I think we need to tell more truth, raise better children. Maybe the effects of what we're seeing now is we'll figure it out at some point and be like, oh, yeah, I do need to take accountability. Yeah, I do need to not be promiscuous. I do need to not be so selfish. I do, maybe that'll happen and people will wake up. There are some really good outlets out there. I'm thinking about, like the Whatever podcast. That's a really good one. I thought Fresh and Fit for a while. They were doing kind of the same thing, but they're so Fresh and Fit is just not. Unfortunately, they have really damaged viewpoints on relationships and men and what love is and how men should treat women and things like that. It's very crazy for me to say, but it is misogynistic and it's a double standard, what these guys do, Fresh and Fit. But I like the Whatever podcast because it's about truth, it's about accountability, and they stick to the topic, right? They don't veer off into weirdness of like, oh, well, men can have a harem of women, that's normal. Like, no. It's about the truth, and it's about values, and it's about character and morals, and I like that. So there are outlets out there, but there's not enough. That podcast is amazing. I would say it's probably the best I've ever seen. Probably the best I've ever in, I think it's been about almost 15 years that I've considered myself to be red pill. I think that's one of the best as far as really changing things, really changing society, really changing men and women in the way they think, and really showing women how they're not being accountable. But it's, boy, do we gotta fight, man, because women always double down, always, because they don't want to give up. They don't want to give up that power. Because you do, to some extent, got to give up power. Yes, if you're going to settle down and you're going to be a good person and you're going to be a good partner in a relationship, it's sacrifice. You got to sacrifice. But what are you sacrificing? Well, you're sacrificing your freedom to some extent. You're sacrificing your selfish desires. You're sacrificing your temporary pleasures for a long-term, much better solution to life in general. Don't argue with me and tell me that degeneracy is the best way to live life. Like, no. You're not going to win that argument. There's no way. Because it's just demonstrably not true. People who live sinful, degenerate lives end up messed up in one way or another. And if you got to sacrifice that. So I think that it's not. I don't think men are not the problem. The only people who think men are the problem are feminists, and they're delusional, and they're lied to, and they're weaponized. I would use that word, weaponized, for feminism. It's dangerous. Feminism is, I've said this before and I'll say it again, it's probably behind war, famine, nuclear bombs, mass, viruses and death, etc. Feminism is right up there with those things. Easily top 5. I'd say top 3. I'd say top three statistically, because they kill children in the tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions every year through abortion worldwide. Sorry. You know, you can't just kill millions of babies and act like you're superior morally. That's not how it works. You can't just tell people they can go be promiscuous and immoral and act like you're on the level. No, you are insidious. And the only reason, honestly, the only reason, but one of the main reasons why you're so successful is because women are naive and they're easily manipulated by things like that. It sounds good on the surface. Oh yeah, equality, you know, basic human rights. Yeah, that's what feminism is all about. If only it was all about that. I mean, there's so much more that it is. And I don't want to keep going because this is getting really long. But you know, we know, right? So anyway, it can be fixed. I think. I think women can be maybe educated. We can save some, help some. But there's something that I think that's within female nature that, because of their emotions, because of the way they're wired, very easily for them to be ruled by their emotions as opposed to sound reason, sound logic, executive rationality, executive rationality. Men have that better than women, unfortunately. You know, I wish women were more equal in that way. I don't know why God made them that way. And for some reason, we're even attracted to them that way. We like that. And I think maybe it has to do with just the fact that really a marriage should be a woman following a man and submitting to a man to whatever degree. I'm not saying they need to be subservient. I'm not saying they need to be a man's slave. But I'm saying I think that even female nature, even women themselves want this. They want to be able to just rely on the man and trust in the man in the relationship. And I think men naturally have that ability. I think men just do. We just naturally are better at executive decisions, rationality, logic, things like that. Where women are emotional. And for some reason, men are attracted to that. We are attracted to crazy. We are attracted to emotional, you know, in a sense, right? No, yes, men don't want to be with crazy women, right? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if you think about it, it is actually scary when a woman is driven by her emotions, because emotions are not based on anything objective. They're based on things that are subjective. Emotions are based on a feeling, and feelings come and go. And so that's insanely dangerous in a lot of ways, right? And it's a big problem. But anyway, all right, man. I appreciate y'all listening. If you listen this far, it's just I could go on, but it's just I'm getting tired here. But I appreciate y'all listening. It's been Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.